Hey everyone, welcome. Thanks so much for joining me this evening. I am Gina Wilner. I'm with Advantage College Planning, and tonight we're going to be talking about the Common App personal essay. So lots of good tips for how to make the most of that essay, how colleges are going to use the essay in the application review process, some do's, some don'ts, different things students can do to stand out. So I think lots of good things to talk about. So thanks so much for joining me tonight. We'll give everybody a couple minutes to come in and get settled on this beautiful evening here in North Carolina. The humidity has come down a little bit, which has been lovely. So I'm excited to chat with you all about the Common App tonight. I know students are getting ready to go back to school. Some of you have already started, which is pretty exciting. So now is a good time to get a jump on that Common Application essay if students haven't started it already. So hopefully this will be some really helpful information for you tonight. So again, I'm Gina. I'm here from Advantage College Planning. I like to hop on here and do Facebook Lives usually every couple of weeks with different topics. So if this is your first time here, welcome. And if you are interested in seeing some of the other things that I've shared about, definitely go back through our page and go to the video section, and everything is recorded there for you to watch. So you'll be able to see any of our other events that we've done. I've talked about letters of recommendation. And actually, if there are any junior parents joining us tonight, that's a good one to watch because this will be the year for juniors to ask for letters of recommendation. So good to get on that. And yeah, making the most of the Common Application itself. But tonight we're going to be talking specifically about the essay for the Common App. So let's go ahead and get started. So if you are new here, again, my name is Gina. I'm here from Advantage College Planning. And if you'd like to just share in the chat, if you are a student, what year you're going into, or if you've started school, what year you're in. If you're a parent, what year your student is. It's always helpful for me to have an idea of who I'm chatting with. So feel free to do that. And I'll see your questions as well. So this is meant to be really interactive. So if you have any questions about making the most of the Common Application essay or looking for help for your student, you've come to the right place. So let's start with an overview. What is the Common Application personal essay? If you haven't had a student apply to college before, or students, if you haven't applied before, it might be new to you. So the Common App essay, ooh, Betsy's got a senior, awesome. So the Common App essay, the personal essay, the main essay, those are all different terms that we use interchangeably to talk about the large 650 word essay that a student who is applying to college through the Common Application will use as a way for the colleges to get to know your student or to get to know the student a little bit better. So on the application, when students are applying to college, they're submitting a lot of data. They're submitting their transcripts, their test scores if they're choosing to report them if the school is test optional. Letters of recommendation are written about the students listing their activities that they've been involved in. But the Common Application personal essay is really the key place for students to show a college who they are right now, just a few months before they'll be getting ready to enroll in college. It's really a chance for the students to let their personality come through. And it's the only place on the application where the student themselves can speak directly to the admissions offices, right? So there are narratives, there are letters of recommendation, but those are written about by other people about the student. And then the other information is just sort of flat data, grades and test scores. So the admissions offices really look to those essays to give a little color commentary, really start to get an idea of, okay, who is this student and what will they bring to our campus? Because you have to keep in mind that lots of students are applying to colleges that are academically capable of meeting the rigor at the college and doing well in graduating. So within a pool of students who are all academically prepared and capable and strong students, colleges sometimes will then look a little bit deeper into the essay as they're starting to also craft a community, a cohort that will be together for the next 4 years as well. So they'll be able to get an idea of who the students are through the essays. So that main Common Application personal essay, as I said, it is a range of 250 is the minimum number of words, and 650 is the maximum number. So somewhere between that 250 and that 650 is where students need to land for this essay. And so that's one of the first things that sometimes throws them off a little bit. My students will ask me, okay, Gina, we're writing this Common App essay. How long does it have to be? Because they're so used to writing papers for history classes or English classes that have a specific word count that they have to hit in order to, turn the paper in and be done with it. And so this is going to be a little bit different of an approach that a student hasn't taken before when they're writing. So really the goal is not about hitting a specific amount of words. It's more about what can you reveal about yourself and what you value and who you are as a person and what you will bring to your community at this college. That's what the focus is. And the amount of words that takes is going to vary, but it just needs to be somewhere between 250 and 650. The Common Application does give students a list of prompts that they can choose from. There are 7 prompts in the Common Application. So when the student is logged into the Common Application, in that center Common App tab, which I did a whole Facebook Live about a month ago on navigating the Common App. So if you're new to the Common App, you might want to head over and watch that video after this. I give you a great overview. But in that Common App tab, there is a section called Writing. And in the writing section is where the student will enter their main Common Application essay. That's where they can see the prompts. So every year, the prompts stay the same, roughly, give or take, every year for the Common App essay. Sometimes they mix them up a little bit. But really, the first 6 prompts are just different ideas to kind of get the students thinking if they're stuck and they don't really know what to write. So usually those prompts are focusing on struggles the students have overcome or an element of their identity that's really important to them, something along those lines. But the 7th prompt has been, for as long as I can remember, and is still this year, write an essay on the topic of your choice. They leave it very open-ended, which I love and appreciate. So when students are trying to figure out what to write for this big important essay, a lot of times they'll go to that Common App list and they'll think they have to pick one option. And some of my students have already said their friends are saying, oh, I'm working on, I'm writing my essay on prompt 4. Which one did you choose? Oh, I choose prompt 2. Which one did you choose? And some of my students are saying, I didn't choose a prompt yet. And so that is the way that I encourage students to go about writing this Common Application essay. So instead of going in and looking at that list and picking the answer that they want to, or the question that they want to respond to, which is what they've been trained to do all throughout school, what I'm asking my students to do is not look at the list and let's just talk about your life. Let's talk about you. Who are you? What do you like? What are you good at? What significant experiences have you had? What do you value? We do a lot of different brainstorming activities and exercises, and I have the students write everything down in a Google document. It's nothing fancy, it's just a Google Doc, but we write everything down so that as we're going through these exercises, we're having this wonderful pool of information that then we can go to and start to pull out and look for themes and look for key elements that really help the student say, okay, this is what I want colleges to know about me. And then after we have written the essay, or the student has written the essay, I'm not doing any writing, but after the student has written the essay and I've given them some guidance, then at the end, we go back and then the student picks which prompt their essay goes with. And guess what? If their essay doesn't fit any of the prompts 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, there's always prompt number 7. Essay on the topic of your choice. You can't really go wrong. But I have found over the years that this has really helped students write stronger, more insightful, more reflective, more vulnerable, more personal essays rather than picking a prompt and answering it, because then they tend to slip more into academic mode. And that is not what we're going for here. So on the Common Application for the personal essay, it is meant to be personal. So yes, that essay needs to be well written. Yes, it needs to be grammatically correct and spell checked. And please don't, if you are writing on an iPad or a device, please make sure all those little lowercase i's get changed to capital I's. All has to happen. But it's much more informal of an essay than maybe students have gotten used to writing for their English or their history classes for school. This is an essay that really should reflect, again, who that student is, and it should reflect their voice. And so I know I have a couple parents on here. I've got Betsy and the Murphy family are on here. So I know you've got some high school students. A lot of times my parents get a little nervous and they say, okay, this essay sounds like it was written by a 17-year-old. It's, not super polished, or they're not using, these big fancy words. They're not using the thesaurus as much. And I tell them that's perfect. I want an essay that sounds like the person who wrote it. And that person is likely 17 or 18 years old at the time they're writing this essay. And that's exactly what colleges are going to want to. College admissions offices read thousands of applications a year, thousands of essays they're reading. They know what 17-year-olds sound like. And so when they get an essay that sounds like a 55-year-old person wrote it, that's going to set off a little bit of a flag for the admissions office, right? They know what 17-year-olds sound like, and they want the essay to sound like the student. Again, because this is the chance for the student to really show who they are and what their personality is. So let me share a little bit about some brainstorming activities. Those might be helpful. So here's some action steps. So if any students are on here, or parents, if your student hasn't started the Common App yet, their essay yet, it's okay. They're fine. I just would recommend they get it started soon before school gets really busy. But here are some activities that they could do. And this could be something where they just sit on their own and think and write, or maybe you as a family could sit down and, each night all work together to answer a question and have a discussion, depending on the vibe of your family and how you all interact. But some of the activities that I encourage my students to do, one is I ask them to write out a timeline of their life from their earliest memory up until now. And that's really interesting because I get to see, what stands out to the students, what was really important to them, what were some of the significant moments for them. And for some students, there's a lot about family in there. For some students, their timeline is really marked by accomplishments. So, I came in this place in this competition, and then I competed in this event. So that helps me get some insight into the student. Again, it doesn't necessarily mean, oh, that's the answer. The student's a really competitive person in science Olympiad, so that's what they should write about. Not necessarily, but that's giving us the idea that, okay, this student really values perhaps, their academics, and they also really value competition. They really value the studying and then the assessments that come with that. Is that something that's so important to that student that we should make sure that somewhere, somehow that's included in their application? Or for the student who family is so important to that student, maybe that's a core value that we need to make sure is somewhere, somehow reflected in the application. So the colleges are really getting an understanding of who that student is. Another activity I like to do with students as they're prepping for their personal essay brainstorming activity is I'll ask them to write down, have them set a timer, and I'll ask them to write down things that they love and things that they know about, know how to do. And those usually start off kind of basic, but if you give them enough time, they start getting a little bit more unique and a little bit more in depth. And sometimes that can be a really good conversation starter or a spark for an essay. Maybe a student has a special talent, right? So not talent as in, an award-winning tuba player, but maybe they have a special talent when it comes to maybe they are known as the cake baker in your family. And for all family holidays, in your extended family, everyone reaches out to this one specific student to do that, right? Maybe that comes out, and maybe that's sort of where the essay is going to go. You never really know what's going to take off for the essay. So that's another one. And then another one, the third one that I want to mention that I like to have students do is around their values. So I talk about values a lot because when the students are writing the essays, we really want them to get at the core of who they are, right? Because again, this is the students' one opportunity to show the colleges who they're going to be on this campus. What kind of classmate are they going to be? What kind of roommate are they going to be? They're going to be somebody's roommate. So what kind of person are you? And so helping the student narrow down on and think about and then really hone in and narrow down on what they value the most can be a great overarching guide for where that essay could go. So there are a lot of different resources online. There are a lot of great different brainstorming activities online. And there are certainly lists that you can find online as well, or in books with just lists of values, things that people value. And so I have my colleagues and I, we have our students look through a list and then kind of narrow down from a big number of values to, okay, now if you can only pick a smaller number and then a smaller number, and really make them think critically about what is if I had to pick the 3 most important values to me that I come back to time and time again, and, really guide the decisions I'm making in my life, what are they? And for a lot of 17-year-olds, that's not something they sit around thinking. So this is a great opportunity to push them to do that work. And again, we're writing all this information down in our super fancy, very plain Google Doc. And the reason for that is because, number one, you never know what is going to turn into an amazing essay. And number two, all of that information that they're putting down and they're gathering together in that document, some of it will get used for the Common Application main personal essay, but some of it also can work really well for supplemental essays that students will have to write for their individual colleges. Oh, Amy's here. Great. She is a senior. Hey, Amy. Awesome. Thanks for coming. So lots of seniors here tonight. So great. So that's where, you farm all of your information, and they sit down, and over one period of time, they get all the ideas out, and then they can keep going back to that Google Doc and keep pulling from it to use for different essays. So I say a lot, and my colleagues and I, we all tell our students, you can pretty much write your essay about almost anything. There are some topics that we try to encourage students to avoid, and I'll get into those in a minute. But honestly, and parents, I can't stress this enough, because I know sometimes it makes you nervous when your student comes home and says, yeah, I worked with Gina today and I'm really excited. I'm going to write my essay on, and then they come up with, say, some random topic, and you maybe start to doubt our path. But please trust the process. I promise you, we would never let your students submit an application with a completely inappropriate essay topic. Absolutely not. We're here to help. But students, my colleagues and I have had some awesome essays that we've read, both of our own personal students and when we worked in admissions, on really interesting, seemingly strange topics. So there was one about chicken nuggets. There was one about a student who wrote all about their backpack and all the different things that you could find in that student's backpack. A student wrote about the results of a strengths assessment that they took. So one of them wrote about a painting that she had gotten as a gift when she was a baby. So really, students can write about pretty much anything, because here's the thing. I tell my students this all the time. The essay isn't really about the chicken nuggets or the painting or the shoes or the necklace or whatever they pick. It's not really about that. They're using whatever that topic is as a lens, as a way to then reveal something about themselves. And so again, this is very different than the type of essay they've ever written for school. So when they come home and they tell you they're writing an essay about something that sounds crazy, just trust the process. And if you're working with us and you're one of our clients who are here tonight, if you get nervous, you can always send us a text, but I promise we will never lead them astray. So if your student has an interesting topic, let them go with it. So the first thing I do is that brainstorming. And then after all the brainstorming, then again, we start to look for themes. Is there a common theme between your values? Let's look at what your values are and maybe what you want to study, or what your values are and significant experiences that you've had. How can we start to put some of those things together? Maybe there's an item that's a really specific item that's very special to a student, a piece of jewelry, or, some random stone that they picked up one time on this walk that was very significant. What if that was the topic? What could the college learn about you through the lens of this, this ring or what have you? And then I'll have them do a 15-minute free write. I'll say I literally tell them to set a timer, write for 15 minutes on this topic, full sentences. You'll know really quick if this topic's going to work or not. Because sometimes after 5 or 7 minutes, the student gets bored and says, I literally have nothing else to say. Then I think we know that that's not it, right? Sometimes the timer goes off and they say, oh, it went off too quickly. I had more that I was going to get out. Perfect. That tells us something. So then we can continue kind of moving forward with the process. So that's really how I get the process up and going. So Amy, Betsy, you guys have seniors. If they haven't started their some people have started their essays, I'm sure, but if a student hasn't started their essay yet, it can be really intimidating to sit down to a blank screen and say, I have to write 650 words about myself. That's hard, right? But if you break it down into these little steps, do the brainstorming, identify some themes, now do a 15-minute free write, now just expand a little bit on that free write, it starts to make it a little bit more manageable. So that's the way I work with my students. That's sort of the approach that I would encourage students to take. So let's talk about a couple things that students should do. I feel like maybe some do's and don'ts might be helpful. So a couple of do's. One is, again, the student really should be focused on themselves. So I want the students to talk about themselves. I want the students to share information about who they are. Do have the essay sound like a 17-year-old write it, and just do not worry about word count initially. Those are some do's. Do be willing to kind of go there and be honest. A couple of don'ts. So I would tell students, don't have too many people giving you feedback on your essay. And so this is another hard one sometimes for parents to hear, but don't have too many people. So, it's the student can show the essay to whoever they want to show the essay to, and not show the essay to whoever they don't want to show the essay to. It is their work, and I fully respect that. But what I've seen over time is that when a student starts to get input from, if they're working with us, so from their consultant, and then maybe an English teacher, if it's a paper that they have to turn in for English class, and then a parent, and then a neighbor who also happens to be a really great writer, and then an older sibling who's already been admitted to college, and then a best friend and a significant other who's a really good English student, you kind of see where I'm going. It starts to get muddled. And so then the student starts getting feedback that is all well-meaning, but can be very conflicting and can really end up really taking out the student's voice from the essay. And that's really the worst thing that can happen. So I encourage students to wait and not get feedback from too many people, and then decide at the very end when it's finished, no more changes, if they want to share it or not. And that's my best advice. This is another one. Yes, do not try to be perfect. So a lot of times students will think, this is my chance to show the college exactly how wonderful I am and why they should admit me. And I push back on that and I say, I agree that you are wonderful, but painting yourself as an absolutely perfect person who has no flaws and has never had anything embarrassing or difficult happen to you doesn't necessarily make you more likable, right? It doesn't make you come across in a really genuine way, right? Think about it. Have you ever felt really close to someone when you found out how absolutely perfect they were? No, right? It's vulnerability that makes us human. It's failing and then growing from those mistakes that build character. So some of the best essays I've written or that I've read have been by students who focused on something that was really hard. And that doesn't necessarily have to mean a massive life obstacle, some crazy hardship that they had to overcome. It could be something in the grand scheme of things that maybe you might think is really small, but to that student was really significant. And it shows their humility to be able to talk about that. So that's another thing I would avoid, trying to look perfect. And the last thing I would tell students to avoid is avoid listing all of your accomplishments and activities in the Common App personal essay. So as I was saying at the beginning, for those of you who just joined us, there are a lot of different sections of the Common Application where students can share information about themselves, and the activity list is where they should share their accomplishments and their activities. College admissions officers are reading these applications quickly. And so if information is repetitive, the student is missing out on an opportunity to share something new about themselves. So if they're listing that they're very involved in volleyball on their activity list, and then their essay is all about how much they love volleyball, and then one of their letters of recommendation are from the volleyball coach saying how great the student is at volleyball, we're pretty one note, right? You're missing an opportunity to really show a little bit more depth and a little bit about who the student is. So starting with brainstorming, use a Google Doc to keep everything organized, and don't try to do everything all at once, little by little building, and that essay will get there. But I would say this is a great time to get started. For those of you who just went back to school yesterday or today, welcome back. Things hopefully haven't gotten too busy with schoolwork yet. So this is a good time to jump in and get things going. And then that will make your whole process a lot less stressful once the application deadlines start getting closer. So I'd love to answer any questions that anybody has. I covered a lot of kind of overview information, but if you have any questions, you can certainly put them in the chat. Also, if you found this to be helpful, awesome. If you'd like to know more, definitely go to our website. So if you go to advcp.com, you will see we have a fabulous blog that you can read all the different blog posts that are on there. There's one up right now, I think five essay topics to avoid. So that's a great one. We also have a webinar, a recorded webinar on there right now that is 10 things not to do on your college essays. That's another good one to check out. So lots of great resources. I will be back here in a couple of weeks. So September the 8th, which is a Thursday, at 8 o'clock. So I will be joined by my colleague, Ariel. She was most recently, before she joined our team, she was at UNC Chapel Hill, and she was very involved with their campus visit program. So I'm excited to have her join me to talk about how to make the most of all the campus visits that you'll be scheduling over the next year or so. So yeah, if anybody has any questions, feel free to put them in the chat, and I'm happy to answer them. And if not, I really appreciate you joining me tonight on this beautiful evening to talk about the Common App personal essay. And I hope you all have a great start to the school year, whether you are a senior or a freshman just getting started. It's going to be a great year, and hope to see you all back here on the 8th for our next Facebook Live about campus visits. Great. All right. Thanks so much. Y'all have a great night. Bye. Thanks, Betsy. Thanks so much. Bye. Oh, before I say goodbye, so is everything you covered already related to your students? Amy, great question. Yes. So if any of our current clients, Advantage College Planning clients are here tonight, yes. So this is exactly the type of thing that we are doing with our students one-on-one. So we're having one-on-one meetings and conversations with our students about all of this stuff during our individual sessions. But these are just really great overview bits of information for families, so that this way you're in the loop as well. And if you aren't a family that's already working with us, then you certainly can submit a consultation via our website, advcp.com, or you can just attend these events and get a lot of really great, helpful information just to try to de-stress your process. So we are here to help. We love helping the community, and I like doing these events. So we will see you in a couple weeks for campus visits. Thanks so much. Bye.